an increasingly important word in the atomic and hydrogen age. A word that often causes questions, uneasy speculation about what it is and what we can do about it. The facts from Federal Civil Defense tell us that fallout could hurt you, might even kill you. But that knowledge of a few simple rules and definite precautions might save your life. You, of course, are more than one person. You're an entire family, made up of all the people who are puzzled by fallout, but who will be able to cope with it effectively when you know what to do. But initially, your puzzled concern is understandable, because fallout seems mysterious, although actually it is not. But it is true that you can't taste it. You can't hear it. Can't smell it. Can't feel it. Often you can't even see it. So it's no wonder you're a bit perplexed. Ready to ask Civil Defense?
Well, what about it, mister? What is this fallout stuff?
The answer is simply this. When an enemy A-bomb or an H-bomb explodes close to the ground, thousands of tons of earth and debris would be sucked upward, sometimes to 80,000 feet or more. They help form the mushroom cloud. Fallout is nothing more than particles of matter in the air made radioactive by nuclear explosions. The larger radioactive particles spill out in the immediate area of the explosion right away. But others, although you may not see them, may be carried by the upper winds for many miles. Sooner or later, however, they settle to Earth. This is fallout, and it can be very dangerous if you don't know what to do about it. Well, do you know what to do about it, Grandpa?
Not yet, young man, but I will. What I'd like to know is, what's the relationship of this fallout to the other aspects of an atomic explosion?
Okay, Grandpa. To get that answer, let's go back to the explosion. There are 4 major characteristics of an A-bomb or H-bomb explosion. They are blast, heat, initial radiation, and residual radiation. The last of these, residual radiation, is given off by the fallout from the explosion. The first 3 occur almost simultaneously, depending on how far you are from the point of explosion. Your chief protection from these would be the distance you are from the center of the explosion, plus adequate shelter. But radioactive fallout will fall back to Earth over a much larger area than that affected by heat, blast, and initial radiation. The radioactive cloud would spread mostly downwind from the explosion. Winds at all altitudes, particularly those in the upper atmosphere, would carry the fallout over a large area. The size of the area and the distance would depend on the size of the bomb and the speed and direction of the winds. Fallout in dangerous concentrations can be carried by the winds for 200 miles or more. This is important to remember, son, because most of us live within 200 miles of a city whose destruction might be important to an enemy. And while fallout loses some of its radioactivity before it eventually reaches the ground, it's still dangerous to you and your family, even for days, weeks, or longer after the explosion. It's a threat not only to humans, but also to animals and crops, and to the people who depend on them. It can contaminate your home, car, yard, and water supply. Normally, these could not be used until the radiation had decayed to an acceptable level or they had been decontaminated. All this clear so far, sister?
Sure. But you've talked about fallout from enemy bombing. Now, how about fallout from our own testing of atomic weapons in Nevada that I read about in the newspaper?
Our government very carefully tests only small nuclear devices in the United States. These tests are not conducted unless weather conditions are favorable, and there will be no danger to animals, crops, property, industry, or people. The scientists check weather conditions carefully to assure that the small amounts of fallout carried by the winds travel only over open country, away from people.
Well, I'm still worried about people. My family. How do we protect ourselves from fallout from enemy bombing?
There is defense against radioactive fallout. Shelter. Almost any kind of cover will afford some protection. Just getting indoors can cut the radiation hazard in half. In an alert, civil defense officials will tell you what to do to protect yourselves. Prediction of the fallout area will be made by civil defense and Weather Bureau personnel, so that people in those areas where fallout might occur can be given advance warning. Outside the actual bomb zone, your survival chances against dangerous fallout are excellent if you take suitable shelter. One of your best protections is an outdoor underground shelter covered with at least 3 feet of earth. The earth will cut the radiation rate inside to approximately 1/5,000th of the rate above ground. It's important to get under cover fast. It may be a day or even a week before it's safe to come out, except for short periods, depending on the radiation level. Another good bet is a basement shelter, where the radiation level would be 1/10 or even less of that outside. Your shelter would meet the specifications recommended in the FCDA publications. If you don't have a prepared shelter, your basement alone will offer considerable protection. And if your house has no basement, close the windows and stay on the first floor. In an ordinary frame house, the fallout radiation level would be only about 1/2 of what it would be outdoors. In a brick or stone house, it would be even less. But if you're caught in open country, almost any kind of cover will give you some protection against the worst effects of fallout. Get into a barn, a car, under trees, anything, and stay there until you get word to come out. In a pinch, dig a foxhole and make a cover of branches or board. Don't let radioactive dust touch your skin. Of course, you can't stock a foxhole, but you can stock your prepared shelter in advance with a 7-day supply of food, water, 2 gallons for each person, and an extra gallon for Junior, blankets, first aid kit, flashlight with extra batteries, and a battery-operated radio so you can receive civil defense instructions as to when it's safe to come out. Remember, dangerous radioactive fallout is like dust and can be removed like dust. Leave your badly contaminated clothing outside until radiation decays before washing them. Wash with soap and water. Take a shower if possible. Uncovered food or water, which might have been contaminated, should not be used. Wash unopened containers before opening. The food will be safe. Perhaps you can sweep roofs or flush them with a hose, but only after you've been instructed by your Civil Defense Radiological Monitor. So these are the facts that should reassure and encourage you, encourage families all over America. and the facts mostly hinge on effective use of shelters. Learn about shelters and other means by which you can protect yourself and your family from radioactive fallout. Available at your local Civil Defense headquarters. Be ready to assist in defense preparations in your community if your help is needed. For fallout is only one of the problems which the nation must be prepared to meet if it is to survive in the nuclear age.